I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, I'm Ricky, and I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am your alcoholic host, and today I am joined with
Ben K.
Ben K. Ben K, are you an alcoholic?
I am an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is February 10th of 2013.
That means you just recently celebrated 10 years of continuous sobriety. Congratulations.
Yes, it's been a decade of decadence.
Decade of decadence. You starting to show off with some class today, man.
No.
That's a word I don't use right there. Decadence. I think of decadence. I think of like fancy cakes and drinking tea with my finger up.
Pinky's out. That's right.
Pinky's out. Yeah, pinky's out. So appreciate you coming on and coming on the show. Our paths have crossed. We share a similar meeting. Actually do service work together. Haven't really heard a whole lot about your story. I think I've seen you in a couple other rooms as well. And I wanted to invite you on the show, get to know you a little bit more, and get that alcoholic connection going. Because that's been the biggest tool in my toolbox is the connection of an alcoholic talking to another alcoholic.
Yeah, I have heard over this 10-year span that alcoholism is a disease of isolation. And a lot of what comes to mind when I hear things like that are the connections that we make in our home groups, in our meetings between two alcoholics. And like you said, we do have a recurring meeting that we attend together. And the theme of that is the power of two. One alcoholic speaking with another, sharing experience, strength, and hope.
Awkward silence. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's a pregnant pause.
Yeah. So 10 years. So that puts you, because a lot of people I do talk to, you know, that they've began their recovery journey pre-pandemic. You know, how did you start your journey of recovery 10 years ago? Was it in-person meetings, online meetings? How 10 years that's a good length of time.
Yeah, so I did come to AA traditionally in person, doing the whole AA traditional walk with God and my higher power and things like that. And over the years, that's changed. But the reason that I came to Alcoholics Anonymous was because someone suggested that they would go to a meeting with me. That maybe I did have a drinking problem, because at the time in my life that I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, drinking was a very big part of my life. Drinking was a social activity Monday through Wednesday, and then a binge activity Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The moment that I realized that help was available was a lunch date that I had with a friend. So a couple days prior to that, I finished my semester at school. So in 2006, I went back to college. I had to start out from the beginning because I did so well in my first 2 years that I was academically and disciplinarily dismissed from a 4-year university. And I didn't go back, and my grades were garbage. So I got the opportunity to start school again. But then what that offered me was semester breaks, and semester breaks were fun because I had no accountability or responsibility. Now I did have I had a child at that point, so I just took that responsibility for granted. But it was basically 30 days of party, 30 straight days of me doing whatever I wanted to do at whatever time of the day I wanted. And I'm a big Philadelphia Phillies fan, and I live in Atlanta. So it's very difficult to live in a rival city, but I would always go to the games when they come around. And the Phillies came into town, and we were in Turner Field, which was actually built for the Olympics in '96. And then the Braves bought it. So we're in Turner Field, and I had been drinking since about 10 a.m. It was a nighttime game. I drank all the way down in the car ride, and I was double fisting tall boys during the whole game. And I was with 3 other guys, and 2 of them were drinking friends, right? And the third guy was just a guy that was a really good friend of mine who had never really seen me in that persona. He had not seen my drinking persona. And he was so embarrassed. And I gave him plenty of reasons to be embarrassed. I mean, I was telling people behind me to go F themselves. I was waving down the yellow coats, all the security people saying, "Oh, they're talking about me. They're talking about me. Woo!" It was so bad that Philadelphia fans walked away and didn't want to be a part of what I was doing. And I had a blast. And the guys, my drinking buddies, said I was off the chain, and they also had a blast. But this one person who means a lot to me was really embarrassed. And I didn't understand that. So I went to lunch with another person later on that week, and I told him that this guy had a problem with my drinking. And he asked me, "Do you have a drinking problem?" And I said, "No, I have no problem drinking. I love drinking. I end up on the floor of the bathroom every weekend and drink till I black out. But I don't have any problem doing that. This is how I live." And he said, maybe you have a problem drinking. And I cussed him up and down. And he told me that he had a family member who came to Alcoholics Anonymous and had double-digit sobriety at that point. And I didn't ask who it was. I didn't inquire any further about Alcoholics Anonymous, but he did tell me at the end of that lunch that if I ever wanted to go to a meeting, he would go with me so I wouldn't feel like I was going alone. And I thanked him, and I meant it. But as soon as I got in my car, I was like, see, it's just one more person telling me I got a problem. One more person who just doesn't understand that if I try to explain these things, they're either going to tell me I'm nuts or they're going to stop talking to me altogether. But then I came back to the home we were living in. We had a nice little 2-bedroom condo at that time. And my father-in-law had been in the program for about 6 years or 7 years at that point. And when he came to visit, he kept a meeting schedule in our buffet so that when he came to visit, he would be able to just, find what day and what time he'd like to go to a meeting, and he would go. And I picked it out of the buffet, and I found a meeting at 6 p.m. It was a book study. I had no idea what that meant. It was at a local church. I went to the meeting. It was a 12 and 12 book study. So we read a little bit from the 12 and 12, and I explained that I was a new person and I had a problem. Everybody told me I had a problem, but I didn't have a problem. And Um, cried and cried and cried. And I got my white chip. And a guy who's now my sponsor, it's been my sponsor for about 10 years, talked with me after the meeting. And he didn't tell me anything about my drinking. He didn't tell me anything about my drug use, because there was drug use. I loved the way cocaine made me feel. I loved the way that weed made me feel. I could smoke weed with the best of them, ripping 3-foot bong hits and being all cheech and chong about it, And we talked for about 45 minutes, and he said, come back tomorrow night. There's a men's meeting here. And some of the guys you met tonight will be there, but there won't be any women. So it'll be a little less awkward if you have problems with that. And I was like, oh yeah, fine. So I went to the men's meeting the next night, and it's in the church. It's still in the same place. Still have it's my home group. We're actually celebrating our 23rd year of existence on Thursday night. I'm smoking 2 briskets and 4 pork shoulders for the event.
See, I know I liked you for a reason. You're a fellow meat smoker.
Yes. Anytime I can make jokes about people putting my meat in their mouth is a good time for me. But yeah, so I went to that meeting, but I tried to sit in the back. I tried to sit in the back of the room because I wasn't like you. And my problems were unique. And this huge gentleman, probably 6'3", 250, 260, handlebar mustache, black and yellow or black and orange Harley jacket, turns around and he says, you sit over here with the rest of us alcoholics. And I was terrified. I was so terrified. And I sat down next to this man, and he shook my hand and he introduced himself. And they told me I might not be an alcoholic, that I should spend the weekend doing some controlled drinking. So I did, because that meeting was a Thursday. I was like, this is perfect. Get the whole weekend, just like always. And Saturday we went to an engagement party for some friends. And I had 2 children at that time. They were 4 and 2. And my wife and my children came to the party with me. And it was a keg, because my buddies, we didn't ever do any small time drinking. We did big time drinking. And I tried to control my drinking, and I had an awful night. I dropped my family off at home, went and got an 18-pack of Natty Light. And in about 3 hours, I finished all 18 beers and started on the hard stuff and the dry goods. And I woke up Sunday morning just with this knot in my heart saying, I can't control my drinking. I have a problem. They weren't lying. And so I went to a meeting on Monday, and I told everybody, yeah, I tried this controlled drinking you told me about, and I can't control my drinking. And when I control my drinking, I'm not happy. What do I have to do? They said, get a sponsor, do the step work, go to meetings. And that started my journey. That was how I started it. And I'm very lucky, because we talk a lot about our consequences and our bottoms. And my material bottom wasn't very low. I couldn't pay bills. I failed out of school. I had menial jobs. I cooked pizza for a long time, because being in the kitchen was great, because you're basically a pirate, right? You do whatever you want to do. And as long as the food comes out correctly, nobody says anything. You show up on time. And my bottom was emotional. My bottom was, I can't join the human race. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to create meaningful relationships. I've been married for 7 years at this point, and all I've done is push this woman away. And so I learned how to be a big boy, how to be a man through the power of 2.
man, the I don't have a drinking problem. I drink just fine and it's fun. That's still resonating. It's just echoing through my head, and just, I hear about the controlled drinking experiments and all that. And I know in the past, before I was in the program, I think I talked about this in the, I did an episode about harm reduction with Tony S. And, my mother, she didn't know, she was just trying to offer advice at the time, and just said, well, try drinking less. I'm like, okay. And to me, that was just like, well, if I switch over to the like flavored seltzers, I'll drink less of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, sure you will. Right. I think that's, it's so funny because we talk about, the book talks about, switching from wine to brandy and so on and so forth. And I did that. I went through those progressions where it was like, I will just drink everything I want, to, okay, now I've completely embarrassed myself. I cannot drink. My wife, fiance at the time, said no more brown liquor, because I spent an afternoon screaming at the top of my lungs at her. I took her engagement ring off that afternoon. And I'm in the video of my friend's family being introduced before the reception. And you can't see me, but you do see my hand sort of pointing the finger, and my fiance at the time just like in tears, confused in the background, while all the family's coming in to this super happy engagement, right? And then I realized that, okay, clear liquor is still liquor. And then I went to the higher octane beers. And it's like, I'll drink a case of Sam Adams the same way I'll drink a case of Natty Light. Doesn't matter. But I did have a marijuana maintenance program too. So for the first 9 months of my recovery, I was using weed the same way I would use alcohol. So I would be pissed off, irritable, discontent, right? When I couldn't get high the way I wanted to get high, or had to, put that on the back burner because I had to do something important. And I realized during that period of time that it didn't matter what substance it was, I was still using it to cloud or to not feel the feelings I had. And that was the problem. It didn't matter if it was liquor, it didn't matter if it was marijuana, it didn't matter if it was gambling, sex addiction, all those things would still give me the control I wanted and produce the pain I didn't want in others.
Yeah, it makes me think about just like, it's just not alcohol. There's something in this is just me. I feel like in me is like, there's like something my brain chases, and it's just like, I was proud of myself yesterday at the birthday party. Because it's like, once I start eating sweets now, it's like, I gotta have more. Because I've already tested this theory with the buy one get one free peanut M&Ms at Speedway, and they're king size bags. And I ate the one bag, and there's no reason to eat the other bag, and I did it. And I'm like, why did I do that? Because I could. That's why I did it. That's why I drink the way I drink. I mean, and I'm just like, I always come up with like these little theories, but like yesterday, I was like, ooh, cake and ice cream. And I thought back to like these little get-togethers we've been having, birthdays and all this other stuff. And it's like, cake, ice cream. Let's go for round two. And last night, I'm like, I'm not going to go for round two for cake and ice cream. I went back for one little tiny scoop of ice cream. It wasn't cake and ice cream, so I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, but it's just like the realizations I've had since doing this. It's just like once I commit to something, it's a bitch to stop.
So that you bring up a good point, because we're always trying to substitute this something, whether it's material or food or something, for some reason. And that's why we're supposed to do the 4-step, and we're supposed to do more reflection. But the counterpoint to that is the owner of Ben and Jerry's, Ben, said that the only way to tell if a pint of ice cream is good is if it tastes the same way at the bottom that it did on the top, right? So you have to eat the whole pint to know. And I do that often. I eat Dairy Queen way more than I should. And I eat at least 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream a week, because I eat my feelings now. If I'm sad, if I'm scared, if I'm angry, for, as I said, stupid, restless, irritable discontent, man, for whatever reason. Yesterday, I went to Costco specifically to buy the meat that I'm supposed to smoke for our party, and I ended up eating 2 hot dogs and a churro at 10:30 in the morning. I didn't need that, but I was restless, irritable, discontent. I'm just filling holes with stuff. And I know that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and in introspection and reflection will tell me why. But in the moment, I'm like, no, I'm not going to think about why I'm angry. I'm just going to not be angry by eating what I want to eat or smoking cigarettes, or whatever it is. It's the same thing.
Man, life's a bitch, man.
Life is hard, and there's no manual for it, right? And you have more than one child. You have one.
I have 2 girls.
2 girls, right? And so I have 2 kids, and like my life is not about Ben anymore. It hasn't been about Ben for a really long time, but like in the last 10 years, I've realized that it's really not about Ben. It's been about like getting people to and from activities and picking up from school and getting homework done and dealing with a child who has a learning disability, maybe 2 who has, and my daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia a few years ago. And, we're trying to figure out a way on how to navigate a learning disability, because where did that come from? Your parents both have graduate degrees, right? Like I started school in 2006. I got my bachelor's, and then was like, well, I'm 32. I should probably have a graduate degree. Let me just go back for another couple of years. So I went and I got my master's, and now I'm finishing my PhD. So, and my wife got her doctorate a few years ago. So it's like, you have smart parents. How can you tell us you can't read? That's impossible. Right. But, it's not about us. It's about figuring out how to navigate all these different things. And then I throw in the mix, like, let's get a puppy and let's sign up for more sports. And how many other things can I spread myself thin with? But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, I sleep soundly because I haven't most days inserted myself and made things a mess.
I like the puppy thing. I've always, and my big thing was reptiles. And I don't know what the hell I was thinking. And I should have been taking care of my kids and my family. And I'm downsized now, but now I have thoughts now, and I don't do it now. And I talk to my wife before I do this stuff. I never did any of this talking. This talking sense is nonsense. But now I'm focusing on the kids and focusing on how to make them right, and how the hell I get kids not to eat sweets, and how to keep them happy, and how to keep it balanced. And why isn't there a damn manual for this, Ben?
Yeah, because and I've been told this often, that I treat everyone in my household like they were robots. And there are manuals for robots, right? If they're broken, you fix these parts or you reprogram them, but people aren't robots, and you can't articulate what's in a child's mind because they can't tell you what they're thinking about, right? They're crying, they're sad, but they can't figure out why, or they're happy and they're free, and you want them to stop yelling because they're having such a great time. And it's just like, it's trying to guide. It's like trying to guide a tornado. You don't get to do that. There's no remote control that says go left at this street and don't hit these houses. It's just, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's funny that you bring up the whole talking to the wife thing. And I met my wife in 2001. We worked together, and we got married in 2006. And I didn't start trusting her, trusting until about 4 or 5 years into my sobriety. And I say trusting because I always knew she would do the right thing, but the right thing wasn't what I wanted her to do. The right thing was going to go against my first thoughts and my desires. And that would ultimately upset me. And now we talk all the time. And in fact, and I'll share this with you, she told me the other day that she feels like she has had a partner in life for the last several years. And that hit me. That really did, because as an alcoholic, as an egomaniac, I want the awards. I want the recognition. I often feel like I'm the guy who's here to pick up the dog shit and kill the bugs and, take the cars for maintenance. But for her to just say that without me prompting it or prying for it. I told her I had to pull over because I was so happy that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing just by following the principles that were laid out to me by a program of action. That I was raised with these morals. I wasn't really taught the application of them as best as my parents could have, right? But she told me that she had a partner, and she felt like she had a partner, and I was just floored because that's the kind of person I want to be. And I am that person. And my next thought was, don't stop. Usually it would be like, okay, I've arrived. I don't have to do anything anymore. Work's over. And now it's, what else can I get out of this? When they tell you that life, when Mark A from the Daily Rule 62 says it gets gooder and gooder, like, it is not a lie. There are ups and downs and lulls, and the ebb and flow of life is what it is. But then you get this lightning bolt of love and appreciation from the person that means the most to you. And it was just truly, it was amazing. And I just wanted to keep being that person for her. I want to be that person for my kids. And I'm not always that person. But the work I have put into AA and my recovery and my sobriety has given me that at 10 years? What happens at 20? What happens at 30? The gooder and gooder is just going to, there's so much potential.
Man, thanks for sharing that with me. That's why I keep doing this, man. I came here because it was like, I do this, I'm gonna get her back, and I'm finally to the point to where I'm figuring out my true faults when they happen now, and I can try to correct it, and why she's getting irritated with me, and I feel like there's another person inside of me now because of how I try to correct myself. And
absolutely, and there is, and it's the person, it's the human in you. It's not the person who's looking for the next drink anymore. It's not the person who's taking stuff for granted, who's putting their needs first. It's the person who's literally saying, I am here to not help, not assist, but like, I'm joining you. How do we get to where we want to be together? Right? It's not like, because in our household, the traditional gender roles are completely reversed. I have been a student for 17 years and I've had minimal employment status while my wife has been the breadwinner and continues to be the breadwinner. But I fold the laundry. If it needs to be switched from one machine to another, I do it. I cook meals. I take care of children. I have wiped plenty of asses in my life, right? I have literally joined her in our path. I'm not sitting by the wayside saying, catch up, or when do I get mine? It's walking step for step with this person. And I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be this person. Like, this is just what has manifested as, again, a product of principles over personalities, of doing the next right thing, of taking time, all those. I'm going to say it. I can't stand AA maxims. I wish they would take all those signs down from the wall, because they're all taken out of context and no one ever talks about them the way they're supposed to be. And on that note, if you look at a coin and it says, to thine own self be true, I will also say this, and I could be corrected by another literary studies person, but when Polonius tells his son, to thine own self be true, in that monologue in Hamlet about, never beggar nor borrower be, blah, blah, blah. Polonius is telling his son things his son already knows. He's blowing hot air up his ass. So to thine own self be true is part of a monologue where someone is blowing smoke up someone else's ass and they need to take it off the damn AA coins. But circling back to use some progressive business terms, we'll circle back. I'm just another bozo on the bus, and I have taken that to heart. That is my lead. I am not in control of anything but myself. And how can I be of maximum service to those around me, whether it's making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and cutting the fucking crust off, whether it's, changing laundry, or taking the dog out, or, putting the dishes away, whatever it is. Like, those are simple things that people will sit there and literally fight about and say, well, you never do this and you never do that. It's like, you could just do it. You could just shut the fuck up and do it. And, doing that for 10 years has got me the appreciation I have always wanted. It is insane. And don't drink and don't use.
I'm guilty of all of the above.
Yeah, we all are.
It's crazy. And I think it's great. You're just like, I'm gonna call out back the AA maxims and stuff like that. But it's funny. It's just like I saw my wife and her sister cleaning up last night. I like went in there and started helping. They didn't even ask me. And my wife just was like, "Thank you," and I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" Okay, whatever. You're welcome.
Yeah. Exactly.
I came over and ate. You guys, I was invited over to do this, so it ain't gonna kill me to help put up some of the hot sauces and all this other stuff and wipe down a counter and whatever. And I'm just like, why the fuck am I doing this? Mm-hmm. My big thing is I used to be such a big asshole. I'd be like, I'd tell the wife, I'd be like, why'd I do that? That's woman's work. Oh my God, that fucking pissed her off so much.
Oh yeah.
That's woman's work.
Yeah. Again, and it's funny because, those are traditional gender roles. Like you should be in the kitchen and I should be but I've never been the breadwinner. Right. So I've had to say, well, if I want clean underwear, I'm going to have to clean it.
Right.
It just so happens that there's other clothes in the basket with that. I should just do all of it together. I spend time with my kids doing things with them, and while people are cleaning up, like, okay, no, you're playing games. Like, go play games with the kids, and we'll do this. Right? Okay, but as long as you offer or anything like just offering is being part of the community. It's crazy. Like we came from the society of cavemen who literally depended upon one another for survival. And we've developed into this crazy culture where it's everyone for themselves, and we've forgotten where we came from. And AA sort of brings us back to that whole takes a village, right? It's not just one person in a meeting who shares something. It's the entire group sharing on a particular topic, and you get to take what you want and leave the rest. And if we just focused more on things like that in the program, we would all benefit. And for the most part, we do. This is one of those weird things where I pay $1 a meeting and I get some of the best therapy in the world. And a lot of it is just about how to be a human being. We talk about drinking and we talk about using and we talk about addiction in meetings. But after 10 years, like those thoughts don't cross me until I go to a meeting. Everything else is just, hey, I was at the store and I noticed we were out of X, Y, and Z, and I just got it. Right. In fact, Family Guy did a parody on that when Peter came home with groceries and Lois beat the shit out of him because groceries were her job. And he yells out the door, says, "Chris, you were right. She is mad. She is mad. Run." And she throws like a can of soup at him.
Oh, goodness. That show's still on.
I think so.
Oh, my goodness. So, your home group, that's a traditional based 12-step, all that. But I see you in a secular AA meeting. What's the deal with that?
Yeah. So I don't like the phrase that I'm a recovering Catholic because I don't think people really understand the idea behind recovery. I don't think you need to recover from those kinds of things. But yeah, I was raised Catholic and did all my sacraments and only got 2 to go. But my concept of having a God of my own understanding really just blew my mind. Right? It wasn't the God of Catholicism or Judaism or Allah or Buddha or anything like that. Like in my first 9 months, it would be hard to argue that I didn't want to be a Rastafarian. I said, well, this is, if I get to just smoke weed and say I'm sober, and I'll be a Rastafarian and I'll follow that God of my understanding. And, thankfully I was redirected from that course of living. But I wanted to see what the deal with secular AA was like, because I want to be able to help people on both sides of that aisle. If I can sponsor someone in traditional AA, I've got all the tools for that. But if someone asks me to be a sponsor and they have a bigger problem with God or with higher powers, like how do I navigate those waters? I have no idea. So I started going to Reset Ed Recovery to get suggestions, advice, and experience in that angle, because I do plan to be sober for a very long time, and it hasn't come up yet, but I'm sure that it will one day, where someone asks me to be their sponsor, and I need to have that particular skill set. And in joining those meetings, I have learned a lot about how to not remove the higher power, but how to circumvent the higher power, how to use the power of 2, as we started this meeting out with, to be the higher power, how one alcoholic working with another can be your guide. And so it's been helpful. I won't say that I'm an atheist or agnostic. I do believe that there's something out there that has done all these things for our universe, and not just for humans or people on Earth. But it's just interesting and helpful to me to get another point of view. It's that openness and willingness, like that, the how and why, right? Like to be of maximum service to people, I have to be willing to hear things I don't agree with. And I have to be open to believing that your opinions are just as valid as my own. And those meetings have really done that for me.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
Figure out that I needed to be open and willing, or
No. Basically, the title of the show, Many Paths to Sobriety. You've got the traditional sense and to know, to have the tools to be able to help another way if need be.
Oh yeah, well, 9 years, because I've only been attending secular meeting for a little while now. So, it's not that I've been opposed to it, but I didn't even know it existed, because I live in a Bible Belt. So, might as well tape horns to my head and call me an infidel, because I joined these atheist, agnostic, secular meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. But at some point during the last year or so, I decided that, this might be helpful, and what's another hour of my week spent in a meeting? And the other piece to that is, you're going to go to meetings that you hear things where you don't agree with. And then you really have to start looking at why you don't agree with those things. Why is it so difficult if people want to pull, God out of a meeting? Why is it so difficult if people want to be inclusive rather than exclusive? The book was written in 1939 or published in 1939. Inclusivity was not what they wanted it to be at that point, right? And then we have 30 years of civil right movements and things like that, and women's rights, and here we are in the 21st century, and people have different opinions, and opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and they all smell. But if I'm going to be of maximum service to the other alcoholics, I need to know how to navigate those waters. And I suppose that's really just it. I need to know that if you don't want to do a higher power in your sobriety, in your recovery, then I may suggest, right, that this is how we move forward. I've been fired as a sponsor so many times that, I stopped counting for whatever reason. And now there's just another group of people who I can possibly help in recovery.
I'm 1 and 1, but I'm only 474 days in. So
Yeah,
I've got more time to endure that. So
yeah.
That's the whole reason I like doing this is I'm just like, oh, I didn't know that about you. And man, that's cool. That's awesome. And that's why I continue to do this. And I was just like the other night, I was like, man, I don't know a whole lot about Ben. I'm gonna reach out to him, see if he'll come on here. And I'm glad I did, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing this with me. I mean, this is so powerful, and just everything you say today, man, it's like relatable and moving. And I've never heard it as AA maxims. I'm kind of like a hillbilly, man. I use just simple words, and I'm just a simpleton, but I call them like phrases, mottos, stuff like that. I get irritated by it, but if it helps someone, it helps someone. Right. And I just try to find whatever helps that person. And like, yeah, but then you're just like, you talk about the being raised Catholic and the recovering religious people and stuff like that, then you're like, I'm not agnostic, but I'm not atheist, but there's something that controls this. But what's that called, Ben? What is that called?
I don't know. It's crazy. Like, so for me, I believe that something has done things I am incapable of doing, right? And I see these telescopic images from 12 million light years away of stars being born or stars exploding, or, you do the pan out and you see these are all the galaxies that are just in the Milky Way, right? And there's no way that the smartest person to date could have created any of that. But yet, is it really the God of the Bible, right? And which Bible is it, if we're going into those details? Or is it Yahweh? Or is it Buddha? I think there's a place for the pomp and circumstance of Catholicism. I love the organ and the stained glass and the incense of an Easter sunrise mass, right? That's just really powerful to me. But what's in the homily, right? Who's in the parking lot? I was going to a church here in Atlanta a few years back, and the Monsignor called everybody out for being terrible Christians in the parking lot because all they do is honk at each other and cut one another off trying to get out. And I thought it was fantastic because that was right in my wheelhouse. Like, really, is it all for show? And my studies have also been centered and specifically focused on Enlightenment era philosophy. So I have read the arguments from Descartes about I think, therefore I am. And to know anything, you have to doubt everything, right? So, if you want to follow a particular religion and you get something out of that, that's fantastic. I follow creation. I follow nature. I follow principles over personalities, and I try to make that my pursuit. And if it's helpful, great. And if it's not, again, take what you need or want and leave the rest. We talked about having a manual, right? There's no manual for this. You can read all the self-help books and you can do all the things that Jocko is telling you to do and still find yourself in complete chaos. But I think really what it comes down to for this alcoholic is, what am I doing in that chaos? Am I the one creating it, or am I, the rudder? And I'd rather be the rudder.
I call it controlled chaos. I have the opportunity of training someone to cover my position at work, and he's like, "I cleaned your desk up." I'm like, "Why? Why'd you clean my desk up? Why would you do that?" He goes, "It's a mess," and I said, "This is controlled chaos, and this is how I know when everything's done." It doesn't make sense. I said, "It makes sense to me. You ever get in my position and you get this, you will find your own method."
Yeah.
I'm just like, but I wasn't mad. Now, a year ago, I'd have been fucking pissed. I'd have probably called him every name in the book and all kinds of stupid shit and talk shit behind his back and this, that, and another.
Right.
He was just trying to help me.
Just trying to help.
And I'm just like, why? But I explained why, and I was just like, this is why I do it. But, and it just made me think about, well, if he's going to use my desk in my absence, I'm going to leave it so it's usable for him. So found something that irritated me, found something I can improve upon myself, and made it workable for the both of us.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Controlled chaos. That's what I call it. Yeah. And I do the same shit with my wife, and I try to, and it's the hardest it's hard to do it because there's so many other factors when you're cohabitating with three other people in the same household. Well, where's this? And I'm just like, why am I asking just her? There's two other little slippery butter fingers in this house. Well, it was there, and it's usually the 5-year-old that moves stuff around because she thinks she's funny. And I'm just like, why? So if it's something important, I put it in a spot to where I know it's out of reach now. So, but it was always like I go straight to the accusations and
Oh,
straight
yeah.
straight to the wife, and I'm like,
Mhm.
so that's one of the things I've worked on too. It's just crazy, you know. I come here to quit drinking, not do all this other stuff, and I've learned all this other stuff just from keep coming back.
Right. Yeah. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because of a resentment. Right. Yeah. The guy told me that I might have a problem and I wanted to come in here and show him I didn't. It turns out I don't just have a drinking problem. I have a thinking problem. And, the control that you were just explaining, right? If you look at it, if you had just taken or put the effort into putting that item where your 5-year-old would not have it, then you wouldn't have to look for it. But it's not until you come in here and you realize that all of these other people are doing people things around you, and you could just be a part of it and do what you're supposed to do. Like, God forbid if you touch my stapler or, take a screwdriver. I'm still looking for a new tape measure. I bought a brand new tape measure about 9 months ago, and it's gone, man. It's like that sock. It's with the socks from the dryer. I don't know where it is. But if I had just put the tape measure where I wanted it, where I wanted to find it, next time I was looking for it, I'd probably still have that tape measure. If I want Raymond. And I get all these gifts because I put those selfish desires to the side as best I can. And sometimes they come out. I'm not going to lie, right? I make mistakes. I'm a human being. And sometimes my anger or really the expectation of you doing what I told you to do the first time I told you to do it is always unfulfilled, right? And I lose my mind. But if I can work on me, work on narrowing down those expectations to suggestions, and being okay with the result, whatever it is, it's going to be an okay day. It's 12 o'clock here on the East Coast, and I got a whole lot of day left, right? And it's really up to me to stick a fork in it and call it done, or I can go ask people what they want to do and go join the life I have around me, because I'm given the opportunity to do that without expectation. We have to eat. Okay, well, there's food. We'll figure it out. There's shelter. We have clothing. All the needs are taken care of. So why do I keep expecting all this ridiculous stuff? Because I'm an alcoholic. Surprise. Because it needs to be done the way I fucking told you to. For no other reason than because I told you to. Which is not even a reason. It's just control, fear. All the stuff we learn about. All the stuff we try to fight here.
And that's all the stuff we tried to deny at the beginning, too.
Oh my gosh. When I wish I was taking notes during my first couple of months in the AA, because there was a gentleman who literally peered over his shoulder and told the next guy, "We got a live one here," when I was speaking. And it was because I was pissed off that Macy's didn't have my pants. And I have a regular pant size. And why wouldn't they keep my pant size in stock?
Guilty.
It was.
Oh, it wasn't Macy's though, but guilty. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Unbelievable stuff. Because in my experience, right, my anger is where I get the control. When I'm angry, I'm angry, and then you should start doing what I've been asking you to do, and realize that you messed up, because now we're here, and it's really the fear of how I look or how I'm being perceived that's aggravating me. Especially with kids, right? I mean, luckily my kids don't get in trouble in school, and they don't have problems with their teachers. But why can't you comb your fucking hair in the morning? Okay? Why do you need to go to school looking like Punky Brewster? You got 2 different socks on, your pants don't fit, you got the color clash head to toe. You got one ponytail going out the front of your head. And it's all about how I'm being perceived, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. The teachers know that that's a 6-year-old, and they don't give a shit about how they look. But dad, oh, you better have a shirt with a collar and better be pressed. Whatever, dude. Take the cotton out of your ears and shove it in your mouth.
Go get dressed. We haven't had breakfast yet. Why is that an issue? Honey, that's her routine. Well, I told him to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh. We had a fight over chapstick. I'm not even allowed to call it chapstick anymore. I have to call it lip balm because of that. But the chapstick will burn my lips. Yeah, because you let them get so dry and cracked by not using the chapstick. It's like, and I had to talk. I told my therapist that. My therapist was like, so how does that affect you? And I said, well, if I want spaghetti for dinner, this kid's not going to eat it because the tomato sauce is acidic and it's going to burn his mouth. He said, yeah, but how does that affect you? You can still have it, right? And I was like, oh, shit, you're right. Yeah, fuck him. And his chapped lips. That's his problem. Okay. But the child came home with a note from the counselor that said, maybe you should take these things into consideration. And I did. That's the part of the open-mindedness and the willingness, is that someone with an outside view took my child's feelings into consideration where I didn't, and said, perhaps you work on this. And I said, okay, maybe I will. Maybe I will work on that. There's a friend of mine that wrote a book called How to Be the Dad You Didn't Have. And it's all about doing all the things that his dad, because his dad left when he was young, didn't do for him. And I try to be that person, because my dad was great. My dad was there for all the baseball games. He was there for all the dance recitals. He celebrated all of the milestones and things like that. But then he was a product of, the World War II vet generation. I don't know if that was the greatest generation or not, but my dad's a boomer. So my dad had a boomer upbringing, right? And through no fault of his own, there were bits and pieces of the way he raised me that I am putting into my routine so that I can be just a little bit better than he was. And hopefully then my son will find the holes in mine and be a little bit better. And my daughter will find, the holes in my upbringing. But the thing that broke that cycle the most was to stop the drinking and using, and stop stranglehold on wresting life into the way I wanted it to be. But I'll be damned if you don't put that fucking chapstick on.
Love it. Love it. Man, this was a great hour and 5 minutes of recovery, man.
I can't, but it feels like it's only been 20. This is great.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to be on this. This has been really insightful for me too, because it gets me to think about things that I don't normally think about. So thank you for that.
Yeah. A lot of people. I've had hesitant people, but then they're glad in the long run they've done this. I'm just like talking to any other hillbilly or whatever you want to call me.
So are you an Appalachian hillbilly?
Yeah, I'm up here in Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, I live off of I'm like 2 blocks away from a lake. I drive a golf cart to go fishing. So,
Well, I'm jealous.
yeah, you're ever up this way, you let me know. I'll take you fishing. That's why I wish I could find more local stuff around here, because I think I could really help benefit other alcoholics and like take them up here, take them fishing, stuff like that. And I don't know, that was a big part of my recovery. Last summer was when we moved over here.
I remember you were always, your background was always like a pole, just sort of sitting in whatever sort of stand you had it on the bank.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. I'll be passing on my torch as a timer soon enough, because Tuesday night when I get off work, I will be out there.
Well, I have the Chattahoochee not far from me. Now, you can catch fish there. You just don't want to ever eat them.
Did you just say the Chattahoochee National Park?
Well, the national park is a little, I think that's further north, but the river itself runs about 3 miles from my house.
I don't eat them. It's just being out there, then an adrenaline rush, catching a big giant catfish. Now you just triggered something. I watched that Cocaine Bear last night, and I lost an hour and a half of my life that I'm never going to get back. But it was based off of a story.
It's based on a true story. That's correct.
I'm like, my wife's like, "Where did you find this?" I was like, "I don't know. I saw people talking about it on Facebook."
Yeah. So I like the outdoors, right? I was raised a camper. My dad taught me how to fish. Was a Boy Scout for a long time, backpacked in Philmont, New Mexico when I was 14 years old. Backpacked up and down the Appalachian Trail for several years, and I love camping. But the hunting, fishing activity is great for an alcoholic because we talk about the disease of isolation. But those activities for this alcoholic are solitude. I'm not running from anything doing that activity. That is me getting in touch with me time. Whether I'm hunting a deer or wild hogs or, tying a line for some fly fishing, that's me self adjusting and getting down and dirty with what's going on inside Ben.
I'm glad you brought that up, because someone asked me about that and said, "Well, don't you usually drink when you fish?" And I was like, "Oh, that wasn't usually something I did when I drank." But now it's me time. It's solitude. But that was something else. It was all that stuff I learned from my father, and it wasn't something associated with drinking either. So now I'm just perfecting it, and I just use it as my like that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could record the thoughts that you're having, like if you could do some sort of stream of consciousness recording when you're in those activities, it would be, people would think you're crazy. You're just all over the place. You know, there's not any one particular thing you're focused on because you're tying a line, you're sitting down in your chair, you're focused on the sunset or the sunrise or the ripples in the water. And then you're fish on and going through that. And that's just basic human activity, man. You're just doing human stuff. It's great.
Watching the crane come down, scoop a fish out of the water.
Amazing. I watched an armadillo build a nest, right? I had every reason to kill this armadillo because he was making so much noise. And I'm 20 feet up in my tree stand with a 308. I'll put this armadillo in pieces with a 308. But I got to watch him build a nest. And I was disappointed because he was making more noise than a construction site. And there weren't going to be any deer that day. But I got to witness something that many people don't. And some people who do see it find it uninteresting. And for me, it was just like, holy shit. Like, this is what's happening in front of me. This is the most amazing. This is some Nature Channel stuff right here, right? Like, this is narrated by Morgan Freeman type stuff. And I'm going to enjoy this. And I did. I watched this little guy gather up all these leaves and tuck them into a little hole in the ground and come back out. And he did it for about 40 minutes. And then the sun came up and I went and had lunch because there was no way any deer were coming out at that point. It's not cold enough here.
Reminded me of the time I shot a crossbow bolt at a squirrel getting in my deer corn. Lost a damn arrow. I'm like, that's not yours.
Yeah, right?
That was prior. Now I just be like, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah.
But back then, I'm just like, get the fuck out of the corn.
Yeah. How much you going to take, asshole? How much you going to take? You going to take all of it?
Oh, my God. Woo. Man, the ridiculous shit I used to think, man.
Well, I'm fairly certain if you're like me, you're still thinking those things. You're just not acting on them. You're not just losing crossbow bolts.
No. Oh, goodness.
But thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, you had me laughing and crying today, and that was a good combination for me. And I think we'll leave on a happy note. Again, thank you very much for being a part of my recovery.
Thank you for joining me in my trudging.
Yeah, and got to hear more about you, and that's what I feed on, man, because no matter how far apart or how we approach our recovery or how our bottoms differ or which path we take, we're all relatable. We're as much as we deny we're as unique as from the other. It's you know, we relate one way or another, and that's the power of this, and this is why I continue to do this.
You're doing great work.
Thank you.